Hell yeah. Hello, this is Jose Herrera. Tonight's special guest is Julian Patrick Seddon. A little bit about Julian. Julian enlisted in the United States Marine Corps at the age of 17 in September of 2006. His initial MOS was in 1833, where he was assigned to 2nd Assault Amphibian Battalion in Charlie Company, 3rd Platoon. In February of 2008, he was deployed to Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom, while assigned to 1st Battalion 6th Marines of the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit.
And being able to fight the way we do as well. And I just remember this guy came up to me, and I'm going to say this guy at first because this is exactly how it was. And he asked me how I was doing, Marine. And, I probably looked up at him, and I noticed that he had, he had white hair. He's an older guy, no rank or anything like that. And, I didn't stand up or do any of the bullshit that, garrison Marines do and all that garbage. To me, but either way, I just said, good, just another day in shit show or another day in whatever I said to him. It was like another day in Afghanistan, just doing my laundry. And, and I remember like he just kind of like looked down, and I looked up at him, and he was like, man, you guys had it worse conditions than we did in Vietnam. And I just stopped doing my laundry and like kind of stared at him, and I was like, I'm like, who are you? And I'm like, this is like, what a fascinating, like in my mind, like what a fucked up and fascinating statement. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm like trying to like process this. I'm like, wait a minute, dude, like
you were in Vietnam. Wait, what? You were in Vietnam?
Yeah, like hold on, like you were in Vietnam, and then you said that we had it worse, and come to find out, dude, I come back and like I hang my clothes up over this 550 core we had set up. I sit next to my buddy Ski, and Ski is he's straight from Poland, and he's like, hey man, he's like, and he didn't even knew. He was like, you know who that is? And I was just like, no, I don't know who he is. And I was like, he looks familiar, and he was like, that's that Peter North guy. And I started fucking dying laughing. And I was like, and I looked at, I was like, do you mean Oliver North? And he was,
I was gonna say Peter North, dude. No, it's not him. It's not him. There's no way he's there.
But I was like, no way, dude. I was laughing my ass off when he said that. But when he said North, dude, it clicked. And I looked at him, and it was Oliver North, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, Oliver North just came to me when I was doing my laundry. Told him he was the shittiest thing he's ever seen. My buddy's back in
That's
here, dude.
yeah,
And
that's crazy.
it was one of those moments like I didn't really, I knew a little bit about Oliver North and stuff like that just from, reading and, if just being in the service and stuff like, just knowing who he is, but I didn't really recognize him at the time. And for him to say that, man, it really just kind of like, again, man, like it made me think of like how like again, like it was I like how and I'll say it again, it's archaic. And I remember I sent a letter to my dad. I think the first letter, and it was the only letter I got to send. I only got to send one letter home, and I only got one letter the entire time I was there. And I remember I wrote in the first sentence I wrote, I was just like, I think I landed in a place where Jesus lives because there's no electricity, there's no running water, and this place is exactly like fucking hell. Like, and it was, and I wrote that it was so, and I just remember like, and it really was like, it was just like this. It almost made me feel like they just dropped me in a place, not me. They dropped us in a place like 1-6, and they were just like, let's see how they do. And after a while, I really thought that I was on some sort of suicide mission. I mean, to the
You guys
point
were
where
guinea
like
pigs.
we were. I mean,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day was maneuver warfare. I mean, it was just shock and disruption, and it was a constant struggle to gain advantage over an enemy while fighting to keep those supply lines open every single day, no matter whether it was, like how it was in the beginning, like very highly kinetic, or whether it was asymmetrical, because you're still battling, especially like once we cut off and we did a really good job. We, we defeated a lot of Taliban fighters and we cut off a lot of lines, but then they switched up their tactics. They were bringing in people from the north. So we had to switch up our tactics. And, and at that point, we were training ANA. So we were trying to, we had the British there. They would vaguely come in and out randomly. Like they would spend like, I mean, the max time I spent with the British was about maybe 3 weeks, and then they were like, "We're going on R&R," and I'm like, "You just got here," and I'm like, "You mean R&R?" I'm like, "Where are you going?" They're like, "We're going home," and I'm just like, "I don't even know what the fuck home is, man. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about," and like, it's just kind of crazy, dude. I guess
Well,
there's different ways I can tell it,
we
you
have
know.
that brain. You'll probably forget.
Dude, I fucking forget everything, man. I forget what I was doing earlier.
Bro, no shit. This past week's been fucking crazy, man. Um, Actually, the past 2 weeks. I normally don't get. I don't have nightmares, but occasionally I have dreams about the wars and shit.
Yeah.
Dude, the past like 2 weeks, bro, just dude, I wake up fucking angry, and the reason why is because I got this like fucking 60-page chapter one that I'm about to be done with, and it's all about that. So it's like I'm hopping back into that mindset, and I'm like, motherfucker, here we go.
Yeah, man, you're fucking. See, that's what happens when you get deep into the writing. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, let's talk about your creative writing, man. Um,
all right, let's do that.
um, what's one of your favorite pieces that you've written, or at least let's talk about one of the pieces that got published recently that one of them got an award.
Oh, the competition or the contest that I did.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can talk about that one.
yeah, let's
That was
tap
the
into that.
first one that I got that got pretty much published.
Give us some context, man. What was that one about?
Basically, it was just I wrote a story. Well, hang on, give me a second. I wrote a story, and it was the theme was division. So I basically took some of my experiences and some of it was almost like not historical fiction or anything like that, but like I just wrote a piece about um it was mainly about a guy that was clearing mines in a field, only using hand tools and carrying donkeys, moving their crates and everything, and they had to do this job by hand. And that there was and I had this setting in Sarajevo, Bosnia, um, and I just set it there, and I had like a division of Marines going to this place into a humanitarian mission, and it was basically about a character, um, who didn't, and the whole purpose of the piece was to show division, and the way I did that was basically how, like, when we go overseas, we're kind of divided by the people, when we go over there, and yet we're doing almost the same work. And the way this character, that it was unnamed, it had to be under 500 words, so it was real short. And he basically just, saw this guy doing this job, and it was just basically he was doing it for his country that was about to be completely divided, and yet he still worked every day to make it not that way. And this Marine, on his way out, when they were on the choppers going to some other place, I wrote in there, that each one of them are in they're in their alone togetherness, they're together alone in their togetherness. And it's basically, and he wished that wherever he would land, that this other character I named it Dean, who was the mine clearer that would be there in the next field or the next place or the next base, wherever he may land. And it was a very interesting piece that I wrote. Kind of just saw it, and I went with it, and it just kind of poured out of me, and it was something out of my realm because it was flash fiction. And I submitted it to was Atlantis magazine that was doing it with this. I think it was Dreamwave, or Dreamwave, and I don't know. I just got an email one day that I got first place in the contest, and I was completely shocked. And from then on, I just kept getting pieces published more and more, throughout this year, which has been interesting because it hasn't been a very hard year for me to get creative. Well, not this year in 2021, but back in 2020, during COVID and everything like that. It was pretty tough, but I don't know. That one hit the spot, and I don't know. It was something that kind of came to a huge surprise to me, but I was proud of it, and it was awesome.
When you say divided with the people, you're talking about like the locals.
Yeah, it's to me, I just kind of thought of it as a sense, like, we're there together, like, when we were, for me, like when we were in Afghanistan, we had these guys come in on these jingle trucks and all these other kind of, you know what I'm talking about. They would come in on all these kinds of trailers, and they were working for us, man. They were running through the desert, running through cities, and driving on that one long paved road and risking their lives. So to me, I never really got to know any of those people. And you think about them, well, I think about them, and I think about the impact that they had, especially when I was there, how they just, they come in and out, and they're dumping fuel, they're dumping supplies, water, and I mean, I don't know where it's coming from, but they're getting it and they're hauling it. And so what I mean, divided by the people and the locals, it's does come that way for me. It's and there we were fighting, and these people were being basically our logistics, and you don't know them. And that's what kind of what came to mind. And also, for me, when the locals started coming back when I was in Garmsher in 2008, um, it was very strange at first, because for me, I mean, especially, I've never, it was hard to come to terms with, who was who, and you're almost divided in that sense. And you got to get to know each other, and you got to build trust. And it's a very weird dichotomy, because also amongst the people, you got the enemy waiting, just lying among sheep. And it's so that's kind of what came to mind about the division of the people. And how even to the point where I like to bring this up is like the interpreters. It's they're over there with us. I mean, I can remember, our terp was with us every single day, slept in the same way we did everything exactly the way we did. And to me, what do they get out of it? I don't know. I've never really looked into it, but I just don't think it's a fair trade. It's almost like, like I said, these guys they're with us on the front lines, and yet we get to go, home with, which we call here in America, and they gotta protect themselves. Once we leave, that's it. They're kind of open. So it's, where is this? Where's the connection? Is kind of, so that's where I got with the division thing, because there's not, everywhere you go, there's not going to be guys that are going to be able to translate. And like, I met a guy named Abdul over there, and he was there the entire time. He didn't want to get off his land no matter what. And he ended up, becoming one of our, kind of a supply run guy. He would, tend his land, and he would leave and go back to, towards Losh Kagar and hit the market. And, we would pay him tons of money. Well, not tons of money, but tons of money, American dollars, to get, cigarettes and soda and, anything, like just, these creature comforts that he would bring, like non bread and everything like that. And, he was just, in a sense, he was just kind of there. But to me, he wasn't. He was, he became more than that. And that's, kind of how I learned how to connect with some of the people that were there, because, I got to, I spent some time on his land, and, I got to know him and his brother and his sons. And, they were, and they were actually in an ambush with us. And, I just remember telling them that, just not telling them, but pointing them, scream and hide and whatever. And they dove into their hut, and they just kind of stuck it out. But it's, once we left, well, he left before us. And I just kind of just thought, well, just how interesting it was that he was there and no one cared that he was there. I mean, I did, but no one, is, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that, and he wasn't doing any of the fighting. He was just trying to live. And, there's a huge disconnect to where, when we're fighting in battle, and, you get told that anything, to the west of this point is fair game, you get a little bit hesitant, because you meet people like Abdul, and if someone's a military age male, um, you just don't know. And it's very divided, because it becomes unfair, because then there could be, that guy who's, out tending his farm, and, he just gets blasted away because he's just that, we're pushing that way, and he's just there, and he's just a farmer, and he's could have been in other units of duel, and you don't know that. And I actually have a story about that as well, about how you just don't know, with the populace over there, um, who you're dealing with a lot of times, and it's a scary fact, if you ask me. And I remember one time that we were on a census patrol, and we were heading into a compound, and before we got into the compound, there was tons of people on the road, which always was a good sign. And it was a great sign, because people were out, and the guy had his market set up, and some other guys were drinking chai tea at a table, and kids are playing, and you got a kid ran up to us and handed us some grapes, and we go into this compound, and basically take security, and let them do their thing with the census and get the information that they need so we can roll out. And when we rolled out, we were just, started getting a little weird, because my point man, who was at the entrance that we came in, was just like, "Hey man, everyone's rolling out," and I was like, where I was a little confused. I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Everybody's leaving." I was like, "All right." And we passed the word down, and we just kind of rolled out. And as soon as we rounded that corner, coming out of this compound entrance, it was a little bit of a long entrance, so you had to kind of get out of that, those thick mud walls to see the road. And it was completely empty. I mean, there was no one there at all. And it was one of the eeriest feelings I've ever had. And we had to get back. We had to RTB, and we were done at this one compound, so we were on our way back. And that was pretty much the only way, unless we went a longer way, and that meant it just it meant other things, that we weren't prepared for in that mission, in a sense. And so we're walking down this road, and I remember my point man turned around, and he's scanning the ground and everything like that. And we're just taking it one step at a time, real slow. And all of a sudden, this white like little pickup truck comes around the corner, about maybe about 50 yards down, and comes swinging around the corner. So immediately, this happened for me. It felt like a second, but it also felt like a lifetime, in a sense. And I just remember that, this truck came toward us, and it picked up some speed, and then a pin flare. My sergeant, popped a pin flare, and my point man took a knee. So I ran up, on front, and I was the second. And I took a knee, and he fired, 2 warning shots to the side. Truck didn't stop. He fired 2 more into the grill. Truck didn't stop. And then we both just we both lit it up. And finally, this truck came to a stop. And, there's civilians in that truck, it turned out to be. And, we had to clear it, obviously, to make sure it wasn't a V-bid. So we only had about 2 guys go up to inspect it. And one of the occupants of the vehicle was deceased by that night, after we called it a medevac, and the medevac came in and picked him up. And the other occupant was deceased. But the other one, he was out of there. And so the guy, he ended up being an informant for one of our, he was just one of our informants for, the city of Garmshire that we were in. It was kind of a weird situation, and we got, kind of pulled from um, doing patrols for 2 weeks, but luckily there was a gunner on our patrol, and he witnessed everything that happened, and he was just like, if I had to put that on videotape for any ROEs and EOF, type scenarios, he was like, you guys nailed it perfectly. Unfortunate situation. Um, so I just remember waking up the next day and hearing about that, and it just as a 19-year-old kid over there, I didn't really think too much of it, but looking back, it's like, damn, we kind of fucked up in a sense, but at the same time, we did our job and we did it right, and and yeah, that was a pretty interesting factor, learning that he was an actual informant. So it was a lot of some trust loss, maybe, in the sense. And there was probably information that I don't know about. That's why we got pulled from doing patrols for 2 weeks and everything like that. But luckily, like I said, we had that gunner that had our back, and everything went well after that. It was clean. But it just made me think of, we are just still, and this was months into my deployment, and it just still kind of, now makes me think of how separated we really were. Even from the people that came right up to our gates, or not gates, but our pescos or whatever they were building at the time, um, and telling us about, where the Taliban is, and where weapons cache or anything like that. So, um, I don't know. It was I think about that a lot.
Yeah, man. I had a similar situation that took place. Um, the guy ended up being a head source, and this was in 2011, man. I never really understood. Like, I mean, I get it. People are going to talk, but like, if my thinking back then, if someone's a source, why would we want to compromise them, like in the battle space like that? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and the only reason why we found out is because, it did something that I wasn't supposed to have done. But had I not done it, and the benefits possibly a month and some change later would have never have happened. And that's always like a shady situation. Um, and the ROE thing too, man. Like '09 was a confusing time, man. At least for me. Like I remember the adjutant used to come down and used to be like, "Yeah, the ROE is specifically designed, to help you make the right decisions. It's here to assist you." And to a degree, I understood that, but it was just like, these people have the upper hand. I mean, they've had pretty much the entire, from like January to June, July-ish to prep their defenses, and it didn't help that you had the media bombard them with like, yeah, U.S. troops are going to come in 2009 in springtime and fight you. So like setting it up. And another note too, man, I never really felt connected to the locals. I always thought it was kind of fucked up that there we were trampling on their fucking cornfields and shit. And there they are, just fucking muddied up, fucking putting in the work. And I mean, I think one of the things that I brought up previously in some of our old conversations with Tyler is that the cultural sense making or the cultural awareness aspect of it. Um, when you're a fucking 20-year-old kid and you're out hunting, the last thing on your mind is, fuck, am I messing up this dude's crop? And I'm sure that contributed to a lot of the fucking issues that we had on the ground in terms of, who we couldn't identify or who was Taliban, who was the Taliban. Um, 2011, not so much. But 2009 was for sure a shady time, a weird time in that respect.
Yeah. I remember, here, because when I went in 2008, we went under President Bush. And so our ROEs changed throughout our deployment. It was very weird in a sense because, hearing about, guys that I talked to that were, 09, 10, 11, when the ROEs changed, I feel like they changed completely. And it felt like to me that you guys were fighting with one arm behind your back. And, we got a little taste of that, but, I just remember there was just a lot of, I wouldn't say fair game, but there was so much uncertainty that we weren't, I mean, in your mind, you're trained and you know what your ROEs and your EOF, you know what you're supposed to do. But in a sense, I remember being out there and I was told that, anything west of this wadi was fair game and it was like the Wild West. And, to hear something like that, you just put yourself in this, it's a different seat. And now you're sitting in this, like, now anything goes part. So it was very, like when I first got there, it was very kinetic. And, when we ultimately assaulted Garmshire in April 20, basically it was April 28, 2008. We had, it was about 30 engagements, or 175 engagements within the first 30 days. And, we fought to, toe to toe with these guys, this Taliban to fight, just to gain ground. But, they weren't, we were advancing at a, critical, just a massive amounts of Marines. It was just incredible for me to see this as like a 19-year-old kid, as a truck gunner at first. And, to understand those ROEs now and EOFs, like that did not come to mind at all for me during my first part of my deployment. I don't even really, to the people, I mean, there were still some people hanging around, especially when we did our patrols. I mean, we run into some, random person coming down the road and, we would kind of just have our terp tell them, lift up their arms and sleeves and stuff like that and tell them to get on the side and we would keep rolling. So, and it was still, I mean, it was to the point where, you just didn't know, but, that when we first got there, we knew. And the Taliban, they knew. Well, they didn't know that we came in at first. We came in early, we came in hard. We came in and dropped in behind them, actually. And, I just, the amount, I think there was about maybe 5,000 Taliban fighters ready to fight in Garmshire when we landed, and there was probably about maybe 1,000 of us going in for the assault. And just to even get to that point was a journey in itself. As we drove from and I told you about this before, how we drove from Kandahar airfield to all the way down to Garmshire. We stopped in Camp Bastion. Leatherneck didn't exist. So when I hear about Camp Leatherneck, I know nothing about it. I know, I don't even really know. I know it's kind of down maybe south of Bastion, I believe. I'm not really sure, but I know it's near there. But I've just rolled through all those towns. And I remember we hit Garmshire, and we were told that we were going to be there for 7 to 10 days, and that was our mission. And that was our mission for 7 to 10 days, and we were going to hop off to do this in different cities and villages. And our next stop was supposed to be a place called Zabul, but we never made it. And we ended up staying in Garmshire. Well, personally, I ended up being outside of any type of, when I left Kandahar, that was the last time I've seen The Wire. And when I returned, it was 159 days later. And I just remember we hit Garmshire, and they told us that we were there to stay. And it got barren. I mean, they cut our supply lines off as we were cutting their supply lines off. It was this ebb and flow of this battle. And it turned into a lot of asymmetrical warfare after that, with their IEDs, and then blending in with the local populace, like we were talking about earlier. And for me, that was when things started getting a little, not weird, but different, because I was just used to, it's just what I kind of expected, as I was told when I got there, that we were going to meet a hostile force. And that we went to a place where Americans haven't been in years or at all. And it was we were there with the British, and I remember coming in, and I guess we relieved some of those guys, and we just kept pushing on. But it was, like I said, it was a lot different in the beginning. And then when the populace came in, it changed because they would blend in. Like I said, when things get compromised, especially with the populace, to touch on that, we had a guy, he came up to our one of our PBs that we had, and he told us that he was talking about this weapons cache, and all these different types of, there was like these mines. He was trying to describe them almost like a dumbed down way, and I was just like, okay. And I remember we got tasked out to go, essentially basically go follow this guy and take care of this cache. And my squad, there was probably about 10 of us, and maybe 10 to 12 of us at that time, and we rolled out with this guy. And he just kept taking us along and dragging us on and telling us it's over here, it's there. And I was like, this is fucked. This is feeling fishy. And finally, we got to this point where we weren't even in our AO, and I'm pretty sure we were in Charlie Company's AO, because I was at Bravo Company. And as a radio operator, I was trying to radio into the COC or anybody, to basically let them know that we were here, so we didn't have any blue on blue. And either way, we followed the mission. And this guy brought us into like this back area. It was towards the river, so it got really swampy and marshy. So the grass was high and grass was greener, than it usually will over where we were. And I remember coming up to this kind of like an abandoned structure that had no roof and just an opening. It was basically 3 walls, and there was holes in the walls. It was war torn, and the guy points in there. So we had some of our guys go in there and check it out, and we set up security on the outside. And this is apparently a person that somebody trusted, but then all of a sudden we started gathering a crowd. I don't know how we gathered this crowd real fast, like in this, it was kind of like a field, and then there was like a tree line, and then there was a compound. And what I mean as we gathered a crowd is that people just started coming out of the woodwork, and there was a lot of just a lot of guys coming out of nowhere and coming to this spot, seemingly to check it out. And that really wasn't the case. And, when we got there, there was nothing fucking in that building. There was nothing around it. And I remember these guys just started trying to come at us. And, fucking, we basically, like, they had, they were up against the wall and shit. And we basically just, had to, secure their position and fucking beat the shit out of them for a minute. We got the fuck out of there basically, and we didn't know what was going on. And, I just remember, I was being grabbed. I was watching my buddies be grabbed, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And, in my mind, I was like, this motherfucker just pulled us into a trap. And that's when it became to the point, like I said, when it's a very hairy situations with when you're dealing with civilians over there, especially with some, like you said, that we do business with, and especially the ones that are compromised. And I believe that was a situation that was compromised, and we got lucky getting the fuck out of there, because it could have got real bad real fast. And that's it was just one of those nights, or one of those, by the time we got back, it was night. He took us on a trip, so they really tried to get us, and we just kind of got the fuck out of there, got back to our AO, radioed it in, told us the RTB, and we debriefed from there. And we landed over to Charlie Company, and that was about it, man. It was wild. It's probably not as wild as I'm telling it, but it's, it was just, like you said, one of those things where it's, who do I trust? Who do I not trust? And, you can only do that with the person to the left and to the right to you. Even being with, the ANP and the ANA, and that was a very trust building factor. And that was tough. It was, man. It was, especially the ANP, especially hearing the stories, man. You hear the stories about these guys, and you're just like, I don't want to fucking, like, I'm not fucking sleeping on my cardboard box with this fucker next to me. Like, not at all.
Bro, on my last pump, we had a guy, an A&A, who was a fucking cook, and they called him RPG. And they called him RPG because when he smoked, when he got high, he could shoot a fucking RPG, like, hit a fucking target.
That's gotta be.
Yeah, man, RPG.
Oh shit. Yeah, we had some good guys with the AMPs and ANA. But it was just, when you're in such a small, I remember we were in a bombed out school, and we were sharing such a small space with these AMPs. And, I don't know if they were their friends or what the hell they were, but they didn't even have uniforms on. And maybe they were just a part of it, and they just didn't have enough uniforms to hand out. Not enough jerseys for the team, boys. But fucking, they were there. And, man, it was fucked up, dude. I thought, because I remember that, we slept on, boxes. And at this time, I think I finally had a bug net at this point. I didn't have one for the first maybe 2 months I was out there, man. It was brutal. But anyway, finally had one. I just remember we all kind of laid out in this, like alleyway, and none of us really slept. And you can hear these guys, and they're like, I don't know, it was like a small hut, but there was a lot of them, and they invited us in, and we were like, negative, man, like, we're good. Like, we are not going in there at all. And, I'm sure you've seen the inside of those places of where they live, and it's It's not some place you want to hang out in. So, it was very weird. And, it was fucked, man. It was kind of hard to trust him at first. And I do remember, I guess, was one thing that, like, I think about now that could have been like a trust building factor was, but also a shock factor in a sense too, because I remember coming back from a patrol, and they had this goat out there for a couple days, and I thought it was one of their pets and shit. So, like, we played with it and all that, and we fucked around with it, and they ended up, we were coming back, and the sun was setting, and we started tying this thing up, and it was making all kinds of noises, and they said their prayers, and I'm just kind of standing there, like, not knowing what's about to happen. And they're tying it up, and I can see the guy, like, hand them like this small blade, and he just started going, and hitting his throat, and just what I mean. It was just, how they do it, and that's their ritual. And I just, this goat, and I'm just standing there, man, like, fucking don't know what to do, don't really understand what's going on. I'm like, they just slaughtered this goat. And I remember standing there and watching it, and, like, they were just like, they just snagged it away. And I remember, it wasn't too long after that, they came over with this giant silver bowl just filled with chopped up meat, and they they gave us some of this goat that they slaughtered it because that was their feast. And, man, they handed it to my doc, and my doc went to town, dude. He got everything that he had in his arsenal of fucking MRE spices or whatever, like, shit you can think of, and he made goat stew out of this. They gave us a pot, and, like, we built a small fire in the hut, and it was interesting, man. It was kind of cool when I look back at it. It's like, it was almost like, are we friends, or are you just trying to poison us? But it ended up being um, just something that I will never forget. And it was, I talk about it all the time, because maybe it's the only goat stew I've ever had, but it was the best goddamn goat stew I've ever had in my fucking life.
Dude. Polly, were you there at the 5-0 Northing July 4th when they gave out when they bought all the kebabs
Yeah.
and the sodas to the entire company, and everyone got dysentery?
Yeah, I remember. And the whole platoon, we were like platoon plus. I think we had attachments too. But we were there for because we flew in. We did the big helo insertion July 2nd in the area that we were supposed to go to and get pretty heavy conflict that was really nothing. I don't know if they got the word or whatever, because when we were briefing before we heloed in, like, they had positions, like fighting positions, that were mapped out from whatever scan eagle or drones, like, surveilling the area we were going to, and they had fighting positions. You could tell from overhead they were setting something up to defend it. But we got there and nothing was really popping. So we just took over this compound, kicked the family out, paid them, and it's a platoon plus, and then some. I don't know who. I think was weapons company guys with us with their trucks, or somebody else was. And you're talking about, to tie this kind of into what you're talking about with trusting A&A and A&P. We lived, there was like a split wall with an entryway, that in a courtyard with a kind of a building attached to it before you went into their living quarters in the compound. Well, the A&P and A&A slept in there, and these dudes were shady as hell. I remember the guys that were there no one trusted them. Like, I'm pretty sure in mortars had their mortar pit set up in that initial courtyard area, and they slept over there with these guys. And I'm like, dude, this is fucking terrible. Like, this is bad. I was worried for them. I didn't want to fucking sleep over there, but they're over there with their tubes and shit. And, Like I'm almost positive these dudes were Taliban. They had to have been, or they were before. Maybe they wanted to
Dude.
change their life, but it was just shady. And so it didn't, nothing happened. Well, 4th of July, like Herrera's saying, they go out into town and get all this food and shit, naan and goat and whatever. And everyone's fucking sick, dude, pissing out of their asses, dude. And we had zero, we didn't know how long we were staying there for. So we all packed wag bags and shit because we didn't have, I think we got HST a few times, but it was just water. We had a mountain of water inside the compound, way too much water, but no wag bags, no nothing. So they go back down to town and get these like clear lunch bags, right? They buy them from one of the shops, get clear lunch bags. So everybody's just spraying into these clear bags. And I remember Locke. I think he was a soccer at the deployment, but Locke, Asian dude, good guy, but he was playing spades, and I remember I had just filled up one of these bags. And I was walking by, and he had his shirt off, and I just slapped him in the back with this. He wanted to fight me, dude. He was so mad.
Oh shit!
I still remind him about that. He was pissed. I think he might have punched me or something, but he wanted to fight. And then we would just walk out because our burn pit was right outside there, and I just kind of grenade tossed it over the wall into the burn pit.
Oh shit, dude.
But yeah, we did have goat down at RPB down in Masood 3rd Platoon. We had goat a couple times, and chickens. We used to get good food down there, but
Yeah, we would get some chickens. Sometimes we would catch them, but they would be gamey as shit, man.
Yeah.
Real bad. I remember we tried to get some sheep. That really never happened. But yeah, definitely a lot of goat. And when we had the locals around, I mean, they would, we would be on like an OP or something like that, and some kid would walk up and just hand us like this hot, like wrapped up in like a cloth, like stack of naan bread.
Yeah.
Feet bread, dude. Dude, this is the worst fucking bread I've ever had. Dude. I remember we opened it, and me and my buddy Shane were standing there, and he opens it up and he puts it in his mouth, and I just look at his face, and I was just like, oh fuck. And I'm like, I don't know what to think. And he didn't say anything, so I put it in my mouth. Dude, it tastes like this. And I'm guessing his dad made it, dude. It tastes like his dad's feet. And it was horrible, man. Like, and we didn't want to be rude or anything, and the kid's still standing there, so we're kind of like, giving him a fucking thumbs up, like smiling, and we're just like, dude, we didn't know what to do with it, so we just kept handing it off to people to let him try the feet bread. Like, it was that one. That batch was bad, man. That dude, it was, oh man.
I still can't get that image out of my freaking head, dude.
What are you talking?
You hitting Locke, bro.
Yeah, he was mad. He's still mad about it now. Every time I bring it up, he gets mad about it. But yeah, we were all sick. That was good food. I remember the food tasting good that we got on the 4th of July there, but we all got sick bad. And then, nobody had wag bags or none. But then I remember people like, I don't know how the CO had wag bags still, but he kept pulling them out of his day pack. People were seeing him like,
Jun Wee Sun.
Yep.
Oh, dude. The craziest thing was watching Lou Miller piss in a hot beverage bag. Because you know how Lou got big.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe that he did it. I just believe that he actually did it. Yeah. Dude, well, do you remember we went back to Camp Delhi, and dude, the entire company stole the entire battalion area's wag bags, and then they started issuing out the wag bags to medical. So if you needed to take a shit, you had to go to medical.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, the whole
I don't
company.
remember. I don't know what I when we were there. I was just using the cans, the barrels. I don't remember. I don't know. I don't remember a lot of that shit, but it was a problem. We had, I mean, probably not like you did in there, being there in '08. We had shitty logistics pretty much the whole time. Towards the end, it got better, but you know, like you kind of have talked about before, you didn't touch on it too much. Just about the whole idea was for you to be, your unit to be route clearance to clear the way to get down into their route clearance. That shit, every time they would come into AO, they would have to re-clear the roads. Like our roads were fucked the entire time.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
know.
was the same for us. I mean, to an extent, our route clearance. I mean, like I said, it started back in Kandahar, and we just kept pushing. We actually had two convoys set out separately. It was a logistic convoy and a combat element convoy. It was strange. When we first left, I remember we started pulling away, and then I could see a lot of Marines, like, people waving us down and telling us to stop. And we were like, okay, because I was in the fourth vehicle of the lead element of this. I can't even, I want to say 80 vehicles plus. I mean, it was huge. I can't even give you a number. But they ended up sending out the logistics convoy first, consisting of still, like I said, 80 plus vehicles. I mean, it was huge. Anyway, so they set out, and on their way there, they basically just their sole mission was just to get the fobbed wire before we did, so that when we got the fobbed wire, we had a place to shit, shower, and eat. But not thinking, someone, I don't know who made this call, but I think it's a fucked up call, is because, why would you send out a logistics, not saying, they're Marines and everything, but you have a combat element that is ready to lead the way, that has been trained extensively and has been doing so for months, and instead of training for something else. So, either way, it kind of startled me in a way. So they took off, and that was it. And I just remember they took off, and not even, we were about 2 hours behind them. And as soon as we took off, we got word that the fourth vehicle in their column got hit. And, it was already, right off the bat, I believe we lost 4 Marines on that vehicle. And, to me, in my mind, it was just, I know a lot of us, I know I was pissed, because not to say that we would have done any better, in a sense, but, it was just like, we've been training for this shit for a long time. And even when we were in Kandahar for 20 some days, we were training, and we had the Canadians train us, the Australians train us, and it was just a different ball game. And, so when we got down there, like I said, it was just the whole living factor was just nothing I kind of really expected, in a sense. Because when we showed up to Bastion, it was, a little different than showing up when you got the Dwyer. You show up to those wooden shit shacks and everything like that. And then when we got into the assault, I mean, we had nothing. We were shitting, out of the wooden ammo boxes, just shitting into them onto the ground, burying them deep, and just burying our shit, digging holes with E-tools and shitting in them. And I didn't even know what a fucking wag bag was, dude. I had no clue until I don't know when we got them, because like you said, man, logistics was horrible. For a while, it was really bad. And, I think towards the end, like you said, it got a little better, but our route clearance, So when we drove all that way, man, we went, through Goresh and Lashkagar and, I mean, through all these places. And then we had to cross like a stretch of desert that was fucking endless, man. Like absolutely endless. And, being a gunner and I'm just fucking standing there and I'm trying to swing in that little banana hammock seat and that didn't work. And um, I just remember showing up and it was weird because they had nothing set up for us at all. And it was just like, what was the fucking point of you guys going ahead? And they were trying to. But yeah, it was like they didn't know where, they didn't know, they were more focused on, and I understand it, but they were more focused on getting a tarmac down than they were getting a chow hall up. And to me, I was just like, I don't give, I didn't give a shit about it. I didn't need a chow hall. This is
Yeah,
Afghanistan.
you ain't using that motherfucker anyway.
Yeah, I'm
I
never
mean, you're outside the wire for 160 days, and
that's
you ain't gonna get to use that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't even expect to be out that long. I mean, my time at Dwyer was maybe a few days until my squad got tasked out to go play. We played cat and mouse with some insurgents that were rolling in trucks coming up to Fob Dwyer. So, we would QRF and bounce out to them. And they finally just said, fuck it. And um, they sent us down to a bridge that was right over the Helmand River. And I remember we had to, we kind of stretched out along the bridge and a little bit down. It was right next to Fob Deli. That I don't know if you remember that bridge that was right next to Fob Deli. So that area was guarded by AMP until we showed up, and we basically kind of told them to beat it, but they didn't leave. But either way, we kind of stood there, made some ground. Recon was doing their thing out there, and I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You're talking about the logistics.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, I don't. So basically about the logistics. Like I said, nothing was there really set up for us to use, and like you said, Tyler. I mean, I didn't know I was going to be out there that long, but again, knowing the job that we were kind of about to do, I just knew that we were doing something big. I didn't know that we were doing, in my mind at that time, I didn't know it was such a big deal. I just kind of knew it was something big. So when we got down there, logistics were shit, man. And I just remember like not really, getting told to, one MRE a day, ration water, and then, water would run low. And I remember running out of water to the point where we waited in some ditch for the trucks to drive by, and they threw us some extra waters they had out because we were waiting for EOD. We were waiting for EOD to show up, and they never did. Yeah, of course. And we're waiting for EOD to show up to detonate this. It was an arty round that didn't explode, so it was just jammed into the ground. Waited and waited, and like I said, I mean, and then it got to the point where we were putting well water in our water bottles, shit like that, and then we started having to wash our clothes with that fucking waddy water and well water, and that became almost not an everyday thing, but in any chance you can, because like I said, when we pack for 7 to 10 days, you pack for 7 to 10 days, but you learn what to pack, so for me, I didn't really bring all my sleeping shit. I brought more socks than I brought shorts and shirts, skivvies. Like I only brought, one extra pair of skivvies, but a whole bunch of socks. It's just, and you think 7 to 10 days, like, all right, I'll bring, you know, maybe a polypro set or something like that. Just, some warming layers at night or, whatever it may be. But either way, you don't got everything that you need. And so things just became to the point where we're wearing them and they're falling off our fucking bodies. And, we're, it was just kind of weird, man. So it was like, it felt, and that also felt disconnected too, man. I didn't feel like, like I was fighting, in this war. And, here we are, the greatest fighting force in the world, but I'm beating a chicken with a shovel in a corner with a dude from Chicago. I'm from Philly. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. And, we're both trying to beat this chicken to death just to get some food. And, it's remarkable how, like, you kind of survive and you get to know, like, you know, every patrol was, not only are you search and destroying or, search and seizure, whatever the hell, census patrol, whatever you're doing, but you're also out there, where can I get a fucking onion? Where can I get a tomato from? Where can I grab some flour? Uh, you kind of know these spots or you just get lucky. And we got lucky a lot of times and we would cook our own food. Right before sunset, we would always cook our own food because, the one MRE a day was not working, man. When you're dragging ass with a combat load all day long, and even and when things get kinetic, you're burning so much energy that one MRE is not going to sustain your body. I mean, you're gonna fucking cramp up. Your brain's not gonna. You're not gonna operate at the level that you are supposed to be operating at, especially when shit hits the fan. So, for me, it became a survival thing, and I just remember, I tell people that we lived in the shit and we smelled like the shit that we lived in, and we were that shit. And you know so that's why I kind of really I tell I've talked to Jose about this before, where I think I've even mentioned this to you, Tyler, where I just have a really close connection with the land over there. And maybe that's because I had to get to know it so well. And even to this day, I can think in my mind, you know, where to go. Well, I mean, shit changes, but and it probably looks different. But if I had to picture it then, how it was. I mean, just now, it's like my own backyard. It would be like going back to Philadelphia. I'd be like, all right, we ain't going down that road.
Yeah, I play that back in my head sometimes. It's like you ever messed around on like Google Earth, like Street View.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I kind of do in
Yeah.
my head sometimes. And I could like take a patrol out of the, PB I was at, go a specific route and like just visualize all of it. Um, I don't know. It's weird how your brain works in situations like that. Even like years later, you still have that ingrained in your head of, the terrain and, all of those things that you kind of predetermine that when you're out on patrol, that if something were to happen, where you would go, what the terrain features were for cover and all this and that. Like you just knew the area so well after time. I mean, that does take time, but I kind of think anybody that liked their job and liked being there, even though it sucked, like that was something that we all did immediately. Like you just absorb your environment to this just insane degree to where you could do it in your sleep. You could do it when your adrenaline's pumping, like you just knew where to go and where, you know. I remember this one time we patrolled up to First Platoon's fob, which was the company fob where Herrera was at, and we were down at this PB called Masood. It was the most southern PB we had in Garmseer. Um, and we never got. I mean, we would get HST resupply, but the route to get to us was fucked with the roads. Like they rarely came down in trucks to us. Um, but I remember one time we patrolled on foot up to First Platoon, and we didn't really know. We didn't patrol their AO as much as we, probably should have. We didn't know it, but I remember we got up there one time and there was this area called, um, it wasn't, was it the Devil's Playground or, gosh, what did they call it? But anyway, I remember talking to Hipkins. He was one of the squad leaders, and he's like, "Which way did you guys fucking take to come up here?" And I showed him the route on the map, and he's like, "What the fuck, dude?" He's like, "How?" And I remember after talking to him about that, I remember the way that the people, civilian, they could have been Taliban, but I remember how they were looking at us when we were walking through there. Like they were like, "What the fuck are you doing walking through?" Like, no, it was just a bad area. Um, but anyway, nothing happened that patrol or anything. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Like I could sit here now and just like go back in my head that exact route on that patrol, and I don't know. It is weird though too, because like you kind of said before something about how that area over there is sacred for many reasons, but I just think about how like beautiful that the land is there. Like if it wasn't just consumed by all the terrible shit that happened there, like it would be like if you like the country and you like, just vast land, like beautiful terrain landscapes, and that place is amazing. Like you said, where we were at is, a river valley, so it's very green and lush right around the river, but then it's just desert. Like your typical barren desert outside of that. But then there's all this life like surrounding the river valleys.
Yeah, Garmshire is an interesting place for geography. I mean, that is why that was a very important place for us to hold, to grab, is because of that. Yeah, that is one, I believe, I mean, Garmshire, like you said, it's a river valley, and I believe they call them like the river people or the water people because, I mean, you've been there, and that's how they live, like all through the land, especially when they irrigate their crops. I mean, everything is filled with water. Like their crops, like everything, and you can. So they had this irrigation method. So that was what
Oh yeah.
made, that Pakistan, in between Pakistan to, flush weapons and stuff like that. Garmshire was like their spot to, to be in.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right
That's
though.
where that's in Garmseer's where they, from what the intel we got and what I remember, like Garmseer, the area we were in right there was where they lived. With the Taliban. They didn't want to destroy that place, and blow it all to shit. Go south towards Pakistan, like that's where a lot of the companies that were south of us, our brother and sister companies, like they had quite a bit more small arms than we did, but we had the worst IED problem because that was kind of their way of safeguarding the area. They didn't want to, which we did get in firefights and stuff, but it wasn't like chaotic block destructing.
Yeah.
They weren't destroying their homes. They were just kind of protecting them with this fucking insane, network of IEDs. And but
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we were told is that that's where they lived. That's where the Taliban lived when they weren't doing their operations and shit. Like that was their home. Garmster was, and they fucking protected it for sure. But
Yeah, I didn't get that until where it was, where they, that they lived there. I just knew that where, we were going, it was a hotbed and that there were fighters there and they were ready to hold their ground.
right,
So, you know, same thing. I mean, and like you said, they did fight for it. I mean, they fought the shit for that thing. I mean, we, pushed and we hit them with a three-prong attack, and they were not ready for that, but they still, um, you know, they fought. I mean, hands down. But and they obviously then that was their backyard. We didn't know shit.
yeah,
And I remember, I don't know when I got this information, but I was so Bravo Company once when I was with First Battalion, 6 Marines, and Bravo Company and Alpha Company did a helo insert. Um, I was not a part of that helo insert. I rode in with Charlie Company since I was a truck gunner at the time for an MRAP, and I was on that bridge. So when Charlie Company was a diversion, so when they came rolling in, they were, headlights blaring and shit. And we were like, at first we had, like, here we go, Lance Corporal, doesn't know shit. And I'm like, yeah, they got all their, I'm like, here they come, dude. Here, I was like, they got all their lights on. And, then we just got word to follow, we followed, we just pulled in behind them and that was pretty much it. But fuck, dude, I lost my train of thought. Keep time jumping.
yeah. It's weird when
Time traveling. Time traveling, man. That's what I always call it. Time traveling.
But yeah, what were we talking about? It was so like, well, so the land. So we drove in. Sorry about that. So the land, when we pulled in after Charlie Company, like I said, I don't remember when I got this word, but they nicknamed our operation. I think it was like Operation Ankle Breaker or something like that because they had. Like I said, I don't know where this failed intel came from, or like what if they just didn't know, or what the case may be, but they we really didn't know what the terrain was going to be like. So when the pitch, it's dark, you got guys running off the chopper, and they didn't know that where they landed was, a field that, and those hills with the small little hills and
yeah,
all that rocky terrain that you kind of really have to know how to navigate and get used to, especially with that load on your back, on your chest, and all that stuff. And so they had I believe, I think it was Alpha Company had like 2 broken legs, and then Bravo had maybe a broken ankle or a sprained ankles. Either way, those 3 guys had to get medevaced out. 3 Marines had to get medevaced out of there, and our basically our battalion commander came over the. I remember they came over the radio and they said, "Walk off the chopper. It's pretty quiet here." And it was pretty quiet when they did the insert. And like I said, they weren't prepared for that insert. And I guess they were more focused on Charlie Company. Um, so it was just very, interesting about that land is, how when we first got there, we didn't know what to expect. We had guys breaking their legs,
yeah.
just getting off the chopper.
Yeah, it's crazy too for anybody that doesn't know what that's like, especially being there in the warm months. Like those fields, that fucking shit gets rock hard concrete when the sun bakes that dirt, dude, and you buddy rushing that shit. It's not comfortable. It's like buddy rushing in a parking lot, dude. It's serious. It's miserable. But then in their tactics, like you're talking about the terrain and all their irrigation, how they have it set up and it's all tied into the main, canal to irrigate their fields for growing the crops. Like they they adapt so quickly to our tactics and everything. Like I remember, and I know Herrera, I don't know if you experienced this, but you'd be on dismounted patrol. Of course, staying off beaten paths as much as possible, walking through fields, walking through cornfields, you would be on patrol and notice the field irrigating and flooding, and then all of a sudden you're knee deep almost in water because they're trying to get you off of the field, out of the open field and back onto the pass and the raised pass where they would bury the IEDs and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, smart, and that's them fighting us without actually having to sweat, and it's crazy, but we knew that. But yeah, I mean,
That
those
was
fields, and they would dry by that afternoon too. They would flood them, then let them out, and that shit's rock hard, concrete by 5 p.m. It's
I remember them doing that a lot. And I thought of it at first. I was just like, all right, well, the populace is back, but then it just, and then I thought of it that way, and I was like, all right, this is kind of tactical because, just like you said, they not only did they switch up their tactics, we had to switch up our tactics as well. As the deployment progressed, and so I remember that very well. I remember the ground, like you said. I mean, it is like concrete, and that's why I say like that land is it's sacred for many reasons for me, and maybe for many Marines and soldiers and anyone else that's been over there. Is I just remember one night. I went out with recon, and we were just doing this long night patrol, and they wanted to just get on this berm, and I remember just we kind of, it didn't really silhouette us, so we got kind of like a little bit behind it in a sense, towards so where we can see the road and the area that they wanted to watch, and we didn't really know their mission. We didn't know their full orders. We just knew that they asked us to go to support them, and we went, and we followed their lead. And I just remember being out there, and it was we stopped, and we just kind of took turns from sleeping to taking watch, and we were just in the middle of nowhere. Just, it wasn't really set up or anything. We were just on this berm, and it was rock hard. But like I remember how the moon was so bright that night, and even with that moon, the stars out there were still, they were so incredible, and everything felt so, it felt so fucking close. Like it was almost like you can reach out and touch touch it. And I remember laying there, and it was uncomfortable. It was cold, but that image always sticks in my mind, and I just remember how black and white everything was, and how quiet it was, and there was no pollution of any sort. But you think to yourself, well, this is a combat zone. Like, this whole fucking thing is polluted in a sense. I mean, not by any type of chemicals or lights, but you could say polluted, but I also like to say the word sacred, because that ground, I mean, as many times as I laid on it, slept in it, like you said, got flooded out in it, and I think back of you know Afghanistan itself, and all the war that it's seen from thousands of years, and it's just it's just a piece of, like I said, I can't even put it in terms how, and I don't even want to say special, but it's just a place that really stuck with me, and so many images and so many smells and feelings. And but yeah, I definitely, man, I remember them flooding that thing out, and I fucking hated it. And I remember specifically this one time, and I don't know if they did it on purpose or what, but this was when we had to start switching up our tactics, and they were laying a lot of IEDs right around in between, first platoon's PB and second platoons, and we were tasked out to just disrupt. So, we just kind of like, the mission was, or not the mission, but our the goal was that we were to ride the back and in the back of the MRAPs. So we're riding in the back of the MRAPs, and they roll out. It's nighttime, so they roll out dark, and then they just blare their lights in the middle of what we called Route Redskins at the time, which was our MSR.
It
And
was still, yeah. That's what ran right beside Masood Redskins. Yeah, we never cleared. They tried clearing it initially when we pulled there with route clearance. I don't even think they got a mile from our PB down the road. 2 EOD guys got killed.
yeah,
And he ended up clearing. He was on his belly clearing IEDs. Like he was the shit, but then fucked up. But
route
Redskins was still one of the primaries.
Okay, yeah, that was but yeah, that was that was just a bad road to begin with. I mean, and that was our MSR.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure it was the same for you guys.
What was the one that ran by Hassanabad was Cowboys?
Cowboys. I was gonna say Cowboys was the other one. We had Cowboys, and then Ravens was the one up by, or I think Ravens was a little south of us. But yeah, Cowboys and Redskins,
Yeah.
and they were so that's funny that they were still named that.
Yeah, that was when we were in Ramadi. They changed the street names. Like it's weird. Units will do that. Each unit will like change their maps and the street names, which is kind of fucking stupid in my opinion. But yeah, they still use the same one. They were all football teams and shit.
Yeah, that's just I remember Redskin, and that was the road. So like going back to
I wonder if they changed that to Washington football team instead of Redskins. It's still there.
Washington football team.
They got PC. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for jumping. I had to throw that out.
No, that's funny. Well, we used to be in Bravo Company. We were Blackfoot, but they're something else now. I don't know what they are. I have to think about it. I saw it the other day, but we're no longer Blackfoot. So yeah, that's something that PC did.
Rifle, you're 0311s are rifle person or whatever now.
Are they?
I don't think that's real. I think they were trying to do something like that.
Well, we had
rifle person, a rifleman.
Rifle sentient being.
Yeah.
Dude, hey Jules, I want to switch gears. I want to switch gears real quick with you.
Okay.
Since we're on the topic of the sacred, I've known you for a while, and I've heard you talk about how your brother responded and went to Ground Zero during 9/11. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I can. So my oldest brother, Billy, he was working for Pepsi in Philadelphia, and I think what it was is he was I think he was on work out on injury or whatever it may have been. But either way, long story short, when 9/11 happened, my father was also a Marine, and they, so he wanted to go up there and help in any way he could. And so my brother and my brother's friend Mario, they volunteered and went up there with him. And when they got there, they had to drive to Jersey City or New Jersey City, New Jersey, and then they had to take the I think it's called the PATH. They had to take the PATH train underneath the river to get to Manhattan. So my brother's friend Mario, and they were both they were only 19 years old, and my dad took them up there, and they had no gear. I mean, minimal gear. I mean, my dad probably had his old ruck, maybe a canteen filled with water, some MREs, power bars, Gatorade, some shit like that. They didn't really know what to expect. I mean, who did? So my brother he went up there, and when they came up from the train, they immediately ran into some firefighters that gave him some masks, and that was pretty much it. And they started working their way from 34th Street down to Ground Zero, where the World Trade Centers were. And they, I don't know how much distance they covered, but they covered ground, and they eventually reached a police barricade, um, where they were told to go away, and things like that. So they waited a minute, and when the cop was attending something else, they basically jumped the barrier. And they went around the barrier. They said "fuck it," and they kept going, and they kept pushing, and they would run into things along the way where my brother, when I interviewed him about this, because I wrote a story um, about my brother's experience, detailing his accounts. And when I interviewed him, he kept talking a lot about the soot. And a lot of people, when I had this story, were like, well, what is the soot made of? And I'm just like, well, don't. That's really a vague question, and kind of put your head to the table and start thinking. Um, but I remember him telling me that they would be driving by, and carts and ambulances getting stuck in the soot, and vehicles with trailers of things, medical supplies on the back that were getting stuck, and they were helping them push out. And then he was there, and he kept pushing, and they finally got to a where this I believe it was the Courtyard Marriott where that was, and they made it into it was a makeshift triage center. So firefighters and everybody alike, civilians and people were being carried in and treated, and by all the first responders that were there. And my brother, no skills of any sort, for any type of, for this situation. He wasn't, a cop or a firefighter or anything like that. He was just they were just regular guys going up there. And he just, I remember he told me that they started making food for the firefighters that were coming in, all, they haggard, and they were tired, and they were beaten and worn. And he was telling me that he ran into one firefighter, and he said he looked like a white zombie, is what he called him. And he said he remembers the guy telling him that he lost his entire platoon. And so my brother, he said the guy kept walking, the firefighter. And so, like, when they got to the triage center, they started feeding them, and then a National Guardsman came in and screamed, "We need volunteers to go, help with clearing Ground Zero, and getting bodies out of there and things like that." And so my brother went out, and they went through the rubble, and they went, saw everything from people looting to trucks filled with body bags that were filled that couldn't be pulled out of there yet. And he told me that there were two cop cars, and one was just regular on the ground, and the other one was on top of it, basically kissing the other one by its sirens, crushed. And he talked about the sound of screeching metal, and how he really couldn't, and this was over 3 days of interview, with my brother, trying to get, not poke at him, but just trying to get the story out and try to get everything that I could, to make his account accurate as possible. So they spent, I believe, about maybe a day and a half, 2 days, maybe 3 up there, um, working. And I remember him telling me, after obviously they were up there helping, you know, search buildings and things like that with, and along the way they would find tools, like crowbars and suits and goggles, and, they would just, whatever they could find, they could use, or they used. And, I remember him telling, my dad looked at him, and my brother said that, like, in his eyes, or I don't know if he said this in his eyes or if he said it, literally, and he was just like, I'm done. And at that point, they ended up going back to Philly, and yeah, it was, and I was only in seventh grade at the time, so I didn't really understand what they were doing, why they were doing it. I just knew that our country was under attack. Um, I knew that my brother and my dad went up there. I didn't really know the gravity of the situation until years later. Um, but yeah, I'll never forget that interview with my brother. And they deserve a lot of credit for going up there. And not too long after that, after seeing all that, and he just had twin girls that year too, and after seeing all that, he ended up joining the Marine Corps, and took his oath in service, and which is pretty powerful statement to be made, because a young man at 19 going up with no skills but any skills that you learn on the streets, of Philadelphia, but to go up there and to basically do uh, the work that it just, I don't even know what to describe it as, is just um, amazing, and extremely courageous, and they weren't special or anything like that, but they answered the call to duty to their country without even being a part of any fighting force or any type of any organization, and they were just regular guys that went up, and they helped. And it's an
How soon?
incredible.
How soon after the planes hit did they go?
uh that's a it wasn't too long after the planes hit that morning, because my dad was phoning my brother, and my brother, like I said, he was out on work, and my brother wasn't answering his phone, just whatever. And they finally answered the phone, and I believe this is after the first plane hit. And my dad's frantic, and my brother didn't know what was going on, so they finally figured out what was going on. And it came down to ultimately that my dad's car was in the shop, and my dad was like, well, I'm going to use your truck, and my brother was like, well, fuck no, you're not using my truck unless I'm going. And they argued for a while, and then all of a sudden they all went. But that was their duty, and that was his call, in a way. And I he undermines it in a way, but at the same time, I'm like, man, you went up there and into the absolute unknown, to nothing that really our country has seen like that on that level,
Yeah.
really. And just to be able to interview him, and to get his account and his story out, and even to talk about it, is I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for them. And they're just like I said, they were just two guys, three people that just went up, and I don't know. It's so hard for me to explain because
Just
I
doing their
still
part,
find,
man.
yeah, I still find it fascinating, and and I'd like to even say the words heroic. I mean, in a sense, and and comes to the point where like you even hear like things like I remember him telling me that the road up there was like almost desolate. He's like they almost felt like they were the only car driving up there, and the lanes to the left of them that were heading southbound, they were stuffed. And like to hear something like that, it reminded me a lot of sometimes in how it can be in Afghanistan when things are hustling and bustling for 1 minute, and then the next minute it's not things change and they change for the worse. But it's a very incredible story.
Yeah, that's that to me. Just hearing that is kind of it's kind of a mind fuck because you think about what we did and the decisions we made, you know, and what we were all subjected to. Making that decision as your brother and your dad and whoever, I'm sure there was many others that did similar to what they did, just feeling like they needed help. You have zero time to prepare yourself for what you're potentially going to be exposed to. They didn't know what they were going to see. They didn't know, how physically demanding and draining what they were getting involved with was going to be. It was just they made that decision and they were prepared to just deal with it however it came at them. And that in itself is a rare quality that not many people have to be able to do something like that at the drop of a hat. I mean, you ask us to go to war, we signed up to do the jobs that we did. We had it kind of pre-planned. Everyone has it kind of pre-played in their head of what they expect it to be like, and it's never the same. It doesn't ever match what you think it's going to be like, but you're playing through scenarios when an event like that happens, terrorist attack, and within 24 hours they say we're going up there. They had no prior planning, they had no mental preparation for what they were doing, and they still did it. And I mean, I'm sure anybody that goes through something like that, they weren't a part of the attack. They weren't there when it happened, but they still were definitely had to be affected by it, you know, for life. What they saw and what they, even just seeing that, like I can't even imagine just looking at the aftermath of that and experiencing it in person. I mean, that's just yeah, that's crazy they were willing to do that. That's
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
listening to his story was wow. It was I mean chills, for me, and just a lot of points where I felt like I was kind of pushing the line, but at the same time, I felt like he wanted to get it out there, and and to bring up that point about learning things on the fly and um, things like that, and I think we've talked about this before in some sense, where for me, like when I was in Afghanistan, I mean, I went from truck gunner to all the I was jack of all trades over there. Like I had to learn how to use I had to learn radio and all that stuff within, like you said, 24 hours within that time frame, if that. So but to for me, at least, that I had some sort of understanding that I'm in combat, or hey, this is where I am now. I'm no longer, I'm not a truck gunner, with AAV platoon. I am in, I'm in first platoon Bravo company, or then I become part of a squad that is a part of, in mortars and things like that. And you get to do all these things that for me were, on the spot learning, and to be, part of these things was, like I said, it, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying like for me, it was just something that I had to do. And, people will say like, yeah, it takes a lot of, special, whatever. And it might, But I just don't know. I just remember I had to do a lot of things that I didn't, it was almost like on the job training in a sense, but like, you know, things mattered, lives counted. You played for keeps.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You can't replicate what happens in the battle space. Like nothing can prepare you, man. I used to think it was so funny hearing guys, yeah, I was an MMA fighter, like in boot camp, talking about how like their MMA fighting careers are gonna make them a better fighter, and no, it's not. And then you see them at MCT or something like that, and it's just like, all right, well, what was that all that talk about? But even then, it was like any idea of what you were going to expect, it's never going to happen. Um, at least not from me. I meant to ask you, Jules, in your brother's interview. So right before 9/11 happened, so they did like these. I don't know if they're surveys or anything like that, but they wrote quite a bit on people having premonitions prior to 9/11. And some people, I think there's a famous sculpture of one of the towers getting hit by planes. Someone made. Did your brother, did your dad have any kind of like weird thoughts, like a premonition about the day before something bad
um,
happened?
yeah, so I didn't ask my brother about that. I do remember talking to my dad, and I'll touch on this briefly. And this was before 9/11 happened. And I hope I can get this story straight, but I mean, I'll get the gist of it. And I remember he walked, I think he went into a gas station, and I don't know if it was a guy or that was behind the counter or that was in the store, and kind of just stopped, and he said he stared at him. He was like, like, what's going on? And this guy said to him that like, not, he was like, on September 11th, blah blah blah. He's just like, I just got like this thing or whatever, and he was like there's like, you're going to be called to do something or something in that sense. And he told me this story, and I never heard of it before, and until years later. I mean, as I got older, but my dad didn't understand it. He was like, "What? Like, what is this dude talking about?" And my dad, was just, he would always take. He's a premonition guy. He'll take that into consideration, and he, I just remember that he told me this story, and I don't know how long after it happened, and I don't, I can't say for sure if they mentioned anything about, the towers. I just remember him saying the date, and that you'll be called to do something. And the guy wasn't like being like a psychic. He was just like, he even said like the guy, the gas station clerk, he was like, I don't want to be weird, but it's like, I just kind of got like this feeling. And he was, just, and I've heard stories from my dad. I've seen some stuff, like, either way. I remember taking that, and and just, it's not that, and that was the only thing that I heard of that he knew before, anybody knew before. So other than that, I don't think, and I haven't asked my brother, but as far as I know, that he didn't.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's pretty significant, man. Some
yeah,
dude just comes up to you and like, yeah, on September 11th, you're gonna do something. And you're like, yeah.
yeah,
It's
he
weird. That's
said,
how it happens, man. It's like people become conduits to some of these like really pinnacle moments in American history or just in general lives, man.
what's the thing? And it's like, I mean, even, to touch on another note, like, my middle brother Greg, he was uh, born in '84, and he was, he joined the Marine Corps, or not joined, but he was, he enlisted in the Marine Corps, and he they you know he had was born with in damage to his ear, and he had to have 9 year surgeries. And this was it's associated with the Camp Lejeune water case, but it hasn't yet been proven because of how that pulls out. But either way, it brings to the point how things kind of happen for a reason. And that's and I don't understand. Maybe maybe he said, maybe that was said through some other force to my dad for a reason, and I don't know how he took it then. Um, but it's also the same fact as my brother when he really wanted to be a Marine because it was kind of our family. We come from a family of Marines, and they told him that he couldn't join because of the ear issue, even though that he passed. And we talk about it all, not all the time, but he brings it up, or I'll bring it up, or it'll come in the conversation, and I'm like, hey man, I'm like, you got to think about it, like. Think about when you would have been over there. I said you would have been in Iraq when shit was hot, and I mean very hot. I mean to the point where, I was like, even your friends were over there. I was like, ask them how, it's like look at them, not look at them in a bad way. I was like, but like see the effects and listen to their stories, or just as you get to know them, you hear things, and so and I believe that happened for a reason for him, and just to end it, and to end that, this idea is that I'm grateful that happened for him. And I don't know if that would be it's not really considered a premonition, but it was almost like that moment in his life, even though he was, went through a hard life with, dealing with, I think it's cholesteatoma with the ear, that it ultimately could have saved his life in a sense. And now that he's here doing different work, raising a family and things like that. So it's like, premonitions and things happening for a reason, like that definitely resonates, throughout my family. But it's very interesting because now I am going to ask my brother if he had anything like that. But from what he told me about the phone calls, he was just like, "What is going on?" Because that morning when it happened, like I said, he was just getting phone call after phone call, and he was just finally picked it up, and he was like, "Yo, Dad, what's up?" And then
Yeah.
tried to, I don't know how you explain 9/11 to somebody when minutes after it happens, but that was the story there.
Yeah, it also kind of makes me think about that time, and I think I was a freshman in high school, or I don't remember, freshman, sophomore one, but you know, after that, just remembering and thinking about how connected we were as, U.S. citizens, and there was no there was no hatred back then. Even I was younger. I was whatever, 15 or something, 15, 16, whatever, but I don't remember any of this kind of stuff. That's what's going on now, and everybody hating each other. We all were connected because of that.
Yeah, we came together, and um, I believe we showed the world that we came together in many ways, and even just little points, just little facts that my dad, my brother, and his friend went up there, and
Yeah.
things like that. So it's
Yeah, and that just makes me like I'm just trying to run through in my head what maybe they would have experienced, and I'm just like, man, I can't imagine them like walking across people that were affected by it, and just like the amount of despair and need that these people came across that they were trying to help. Like that is what the human experience is. That is humanity. That's why we're here, to help each other get through shit. And I can only imagine like probably how grateful those people were to come across your brother and your dad or whatever, to try and help get them out of the situation, or get them something they needed, water, or, whatever they were doing, like that humanitarian effort, pretty much, that they were providing because they were able and they could, and they felt like they could bear it. So that's to me, hearing shit like that's just like, I don't know, coming from my perspective, my standpoint. I mean, I feel like that's why I'm here. That's why we're anyone that takes action like that. Like you just want to fucking experience every type of situation, emotion, and just be helpful and just be there for someone. Be someone that you can be relied on. Probably like your brother felt and your dad. They're just like, I can, this is the right thing. This is what my calling. This is what I need to do. I am able. I can help. I can deal with whatever's going to be thrown at me, not knowing what it would be. But um, that's a pretty strong. That's some strong. That's some strong character traits they have. Because I can imagine, I don't know many people in my life that would fucking be willing to do that shit. Honestly, they would watch it from their TV and be like, "Oh damn," and
And
not throw their pack on and be like, "Let's go." Someone needs help up there. You know.
During the Houston hurricane a couple years back, um, I met this other Marine. His name's Joe LaCapria. 0331 did some contract work. Um, one day, man, right after that, he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Houston to help these people out. Want to roll?" It's like, "Yeah, I can't. I got a kid."
Yeah.
It's like, there's no way. I mean, they went, man. They went up there for a while, and yeah, dude. Like, I don't even know if I could do that. Like, I would do that. Like, I don't. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and that ties into kind of what you said about your MMA guy in boot camp, like thinking that you got, like, even a guy like you who's been through shit and been through combat and been through difficult situations in life, you still are questioning yourself on whether you could do something like go provide support, because you just, anyone that says, "Oh, I would do this in this situation," I'm just like, you don't fucking know that. I promise. I promise. We all know fucking dudes that we've seen them in shitty situations, and you have this expectation of how they're going to be like because of what they've projected to everyone. And you're like, damn, dog, you let me down, bro. Like, after the smoke settles and shit, you're like, now I know. Like, and not saying to judge anybody or whatever, but you do. You've moved their peg down on that pole a little bit because they blew themselves up to be this type of guy, and you're just like, you ain't, you know, Schmuckatelli over there, little skinny boy, fucking putting in work, and you're over here fucking fumbling everything. Like, it's how it happens sometimes.
it is. Yeah, that's funny. It really is. I mean, hell, I mean, you could say that about my a lot of people I know is it's just you know my squad. We were Amtrackers, and we trained as during the 2-4-mu workup. We trained as grunts, especially after January when we find out that we weren't taking any Amtrak's, and so we had to switch up and start training differently. It wasn't too differently because it's just we just weren't in vehicles, and we had to just learn some urban stuff and things like that. Just kind of touch and go. And like I said, it was a lot of on the job training and stuff like that. But there was so much thrown at us that was, I guess, different, in a way. So it's just, you got, I don't even know how to put it, but like for us, like when the smoke cleared and the smoke settled, like I never worried about, the guy to the right, guy to the left of me doing their job because I mean, these guys that I were with just did not. I mean, they were their tenacity was insane. Like you said, you got random, schmuckatelli, skinny schmuckatelli. We were all the skinny schmuckatellis just doing
Yeah.
something on the side where everybody's just like, you know, and not to build us up or anything like that, but it was just we really. I mean, I can't say we, but I can say like I really didn't know a lot of what I was going to get into, but I got into it. I got into it fast. I had to learn fast, and I did. And it was just it was a huge learning curve. But yeah, it was. But
Yeah, I mean that's just truly the sink or swim ideology there. You either do it and you get good at it, good enough to get you through it. Maybe not excel, but just stay afloat and live to see another day.
yeah,
Which that's just a weird thing too, and I don't even like really getting into that idea on fate and luck in combat and all those different kind of ways people like to work things out in their own head on why shit happens, but preparation does have a huge part of it. You can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, but if
yeah. I mean, yeah, it just depends. I mean, there's always these woulds, would, coulda, shoulda, and I wish I've done this, and I wish I could have done that. Seen that, done it differently, and things like that.
yeah,
But when I just remember being out there, and I just remember thinking that, and there's potentially something out there, whether there's someone out there, there's a bullet, there's a round, there's a projectile, there is something with my name on it, there is someone carrying the burden of my death that they don't even know of. And I put myself in that mindset because, like I said, I mean, um I've mentioned this before to you guys that like you know when you live in conditions that just make you think of previous wars, and you're just like, oh, probably the same thing. And it was like, you know just in these ditches and fighting holes and mud huts over and over again, at when it stopped getting kinetic. And um it was just, I'm losing my train of thought. My bad.
no, you're good, man. Yeah, it's just a weird experience. I mean, I don't know. What do you feel like? What do you feel like now, being a decade plus removed from it? What do you feel like from your experience in the Marine Corps and going to combat? Like, what do you feel like sticks with you the most still from that time in your life? Not just a bad experience, but like how you feel like it's maybe molded you and you know.
uh what sticks with me the most is that this occurrence, and my war and deployment hasn't hasn't left me yet, and it's still around. And that was really something that I've never expected. But if I had to pick something, over there, that sticks with me the most, is just how, as a group of people, especially, just even a small group of people, and how we, you know, lived and literally adapted and overcame these extreme and bizarre situations, and still came out on top, in my mind, I'd like to think. um, but there I think what sticks with me the most over there, you know, are a lot of bad things, and I don't really want to get into, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I think we all know, but I think one of the values that that I can take out of there is that, well, two of them is that I can think of is that shouldn't like really judge people for who they are, because when I first went over there, I was naive enough to think that we were just fighting Afghanis, and
Yeah.
that these Taliban, um, no, insurgents were, they came from other places. They weren't just from Afghanistan. We weren't fighting the Afghani citizens or anything like that. So, um, I just I took a lot from the people, and I was very angry at first with the people. And that's why I say that I take a lot, because I was angry at first because, like I said, I didn't know who we were fighting. I didn't know what to think. But then I got to meet people along the way that helped me out or gave me something that really, got me through that next day, or was like a little boost in morale or something like that, or helped us out. But and then um, another thing that I'd like to take away from that, I really think that it gave me, was some sort of voice. And I don't really know how to, bring it to terms. Is that, when I got out, I hid for 4 years straight. And I mean hid, like I didn't have any type of life. I didn't go to school. I went to the VA and did surgeries and stuff like that. And I was in my own head. And then one day I just started writing in this old logbook that I had, and I didn't stop from there. And I realized that something something rare attached, um, to me there, and it gave me this passion and this voice to write that I would never think of in a million years that I would be doing. So, um, and there's a lot of takeaways that I can think of, but if I they're just two that are really on my brain right now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely something that, you saying that, and I've thought about it before. It's just interesting that you can live if you are lucky enough to live a full life into your 80s, just a 4-year experience can, basically dictate how your whole life plays out and stick with you forever. I mean, you see it and you hear it all the time about, like, these older veterans of different wars. You see it in Vietnam guys. A lot of the World War guys are gone now. I think, is there any survivors
Yeah,
of World War
there's
II?
For World War
the last
That's
2019 numbers were around 90,354. Um, that was in
for,
2019 though,
for
so
World
I'm
War
Yeah.
sure
II.
I'm sure it's like
Yeah.
down to a few.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's, but if you could communicate with any of them, I mean, I'm sure they would tell you just that one period of their life, how it had
Just
sculpted their whole,
just
their
Yeah,
one
whole
fucking day.
I
one day. Yeah, one day even. And it's weird to think of it like that, how, I don't know what it is, what the attachment to it is, especially in combat and going through shit like that. Like, why it sticks with you the way it does. I'm not saying trauma's not terrible. I think there is good and bad with it, but I think other things you can experience in life outside of that are maybe equally as traumatic, but I don't think they would stick with you like that. you know, I don't know. I can't really say from experience. I haven't really been through a whole lot of shit I could compare, but I feel like even if I was, it wouldn't. I don't know that it would stick with me until I'm fucking 80, 86 years old, 90 years old on my deathbed. Like, you know, you hear about that, and there's good and bad with it. I like to try to focus on the good with it, and you know, and the good that can come out of it. No, you know, no matter how painful it can be and hard to think about, hard to talk about, and but it's you. Like you lived it. You I mean, I like to cherish it, even though it's hard, because
Yeah.
it's just like Josie talks about, like it's that human experience. That's something he said to me quite a bit, and I just think about that, and I'm just like, it is like if I didn't, to me, how boring would my fucking life be if I didn't have those experiences to make me feel like I've actually lived, you know? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the way anybody decides to steer their life, but I would rather have gone to a shithole and hit my buddy in the back with a bag of liquid shit than fucking than work at a grocery store my whole life.
Yeah.
Like that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with any way you do it. And most people might say, you're a fucking lunatic. You're a madman for all this trash you're talking about. But I
Nah.
feel like I lived. I feel like I used my body. I feel like the pains I have in my body all were, you know, it reminds me of that. It reminds me that as much as it sucks and you got to deal with shit, like you're just like, damn, like, you know, I use this motherfucker up. Like, I hope, it might teach me on the next one if I get another one that, go a little bit easier sometimes if you want to have all your joints working right at the end of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. Yeah, it's cool. I appreciate you sharing your story and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, man. Um, and just for the viewers, I like to write, and Julian's poetry is on the website. If you ever want to check that out, I'll post the link up, and then we got to put up your most recent award-winning poems.
Yeah, I'd like
For
to
that.
read that. That's cool. That's crazy. You said 500 words. I'm like, how the hell can you tell a story with 500 words? Like that's pretty interesting.
It is. It was like I said, it's not up my alley, but it was something that I dived into real quick, and